Now on a special edition of KGW News, tens of thousands gather across the Portland Metro to deliver one message: no kings.
But we've got to show our children and grandchildren this is how it's done.
A look at the demonstrations held locally and across the United States. Plus 10 years of waiting and still holding out hope that justice will be served.
Inside, I deal with this pain on a daily basis.
One mother's plea to the community 10 years after her son was killed. Thanks so much for joining us on this special edition of KGW News. I'm John Adams. Tens of thousands of protesters made their voices heard across the Portland Metro and beyond as part of the nationwide No Kings rallies. The largest in Portland, of course, but police in Eugene say there were up to 4,000 people participating in a march there. We are also aware demonstrations being held in Clackamas, Tigard, Lake Oswego, and Vancouver. RJ Coulter was in the Portland crowds earlier this afternoon.
We heard from everyone from faith leaders to drag queens at this No Kings rally before protesters took to the streets in the thousands. And those Portlanders tell me that this rally feels different with the threat of the National Guard presence looming.
We believe in kindness and love.
The fact that everyone's here today really means a lot of who we are as Portland.
Showing up matters.
Protesters flooded the streets in costumes and inflatables, holding signs and playing instruments to protest against the Trump administration.
False narratives being told, and Oregonians have picked up the right way to respond with nonviolent direct action.
Reverend Dr. Mark Knutson making reference to recent characterizations of Portland as, quote, war-ravaged amid protests at the ICE facility in response to recent ICE raids and the threat of National Guard deployment.
We declared ourselves a sanctuary church when I first got back 30 years ago. We've held ICE out. Because with our neighbors hurting, we cannot be silent.
The recent ICE activity is why many we spoke to decided to come to the rally.
I'm just horrified at the way they're treating immigrants and people of color and grabbing people off the streets, and I think it's pretty disgusting.
One family we spoke to who chose to remain anonymous told us this is their first protest, and it's also serving as a way to instill their family values onto their daughter.
We talk with our daughter that we believe that all families should be able to stay together. There are families in our community who are being separated. They're just trying to live their lives. They have children who are going to school, they're working in jobs, contributing in important ways. And that's something that's important to us as a family.
The march continued for hours and appeared overwhelmingly peaceful. KGW did observe a few agitators on the corner who seemed to be trying to pick fights with the protesters. But a senior faith leader says these protests are essential.
We're not afraid. That's right. That's the one thing for sure. We're not afraid. Those who came before us and fought for us to be able to have what we have today, they were not afraid. That's right. We recognize these are some of the things that must be done because otherwise people want us to be silent, and we absolutely refuse to be silent.
Jay Coulter, KGW News.
Well, let's take a live look outside right now, outside of the ICE facility in South Portland. One flyer circulating told protesters to gather here this evening after the No Kings rallies. Again, President Trump wants to deploy National Guard troops to Portland in part because of what he has called violent protests that have happened here. Portland police say they've detained 3 people tonight, with 1 being booked into jail. Again, the Portland Metro saw just several of the more than 2,000 No Kings rallies held today across the country. NBC's Melanie Zanona is in the nation's capital with more.
Millions of protesters have turned up to rallies all across the country, and that includes right here in D.C., President Trump's own backyard. There has been a huge turnout. The crowd has been really fired up, and I've been talking to people about what motivated them to come here. One of them, a former federal worker who was forced out of her job, she said she came here alone because most of her friends were scared to be persecuted. Another, a healthcare worker, worried about the immigration raids and what impact that's going to have on her community, including the healthcare system, many of them workers themselves. And another, just a man concerned about the general direction of the country. He says he loves America, but he's worried about the erosion of the democracy here in the United States. Now, this protest does come amidst a government shutdown in Washington. The Capitol Police, who are not being paid right now, are part of what is a very heavy police presence, including some snipers on a nearby roof. But in talking to the crowd here, everyone wants to send a message not only to President Donald Trump, but also to their elected officials in Washington as well. Melanie Zanona, NBC News, Washington.
Now, all of this as we continue to wait for several different cases to play out in their respective courts. On Friday, President Trump appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, asking justices to allow him to deploy National Guard troops in U.S. cities. While that appeal deals with a case out of Chicago, it could have significant implications on what happens on the ground in Portland. It was a scary situation near a No Kings protest that was happening this afternoon in Vancouver. Police arrested a driver on suspicion of DUI and reckless driving after Jason Miller allegedly rear-ended a car. A pedestrian was hurt trying to avoid the crash. No protesters were hit. All right, turning now to weather. We saw a spectacular start to the weekend with some sunny skies and really pleasant temperatures earlier this afternoon. And now we're going to see some changes overnight into Sunday. We're already starting to see some of those outside right now. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri is here with a look at our first forecast. Hey, Joe.
Hey there, John. I was at my son's football game this afternoon. Gorgeous. Had put a little sunscreen on my face to protect myself. It was warm. Yeah, now it's cool and wet, and that cool and wet pattern is going to carry over into the overnight hours and into a good portion of tomorrow. Outside Providence Park, you can see the Timbers match just kind of wrapped up here in the Goose Hollow neighborhood of Southwest Portland. We're seeing a temperature of 52 degrees. Humidity is at 98%. You see that nice looking cinnamon roll kind of looking cloud out there? Well, that's the upper level low that's going to be moving in tonight, bringing in some cooler temperatures and some rain. We're already starting to see some evidence of that heavy downpours just throughout the northwest side of the state. You travel out of the suburbs, away from the city and into the suburbs, you're looking at dry conditions right now. You'll start to see the rain pick up in the overnight hours. I have this stopped here right around when the heaviest bands of rain will start to be moving through. That's basically after midnight. So from about 1 to 3 in the morning, we'll be picking up some yellows and some oranges. So that sound of rain that might wake you up, well, it is just that, just some heavy downpours heading into the overnight hours and into tomorrow. Then we transition to more scattered showers by tomorrow afternoon with a threat of thunderstorms. Coming up in my detailed forecast, John, I'll talk more about how much rain is in the forecast and when we could be seeing another round of heavy downpours.
All right, Joe, we'll see you soon. Thank you. New tonight, a person already in custody is now facing murder charges in Vancouver. Just before 11:30 Wednesday morning, staff at Studio 6 Suites called police after finding blood across a hotel room. Inside, officers found the body of 51-year-old Cami Pollock. While investigating, they identified 27-year-old Joseph Uriarte as the suspect and booked him on second-degree murder charges. A Portland mother says she is broken inside, living 10 years without knowing who killed her son in downtown Portland. Our Libby Dowsett spoke to the mother of Dion Matthews Jr. on this 10th anniversary of his death.
KGW has followed this story for years and talked to Dion's mother many times. But she told me in this entire decade, she's only received one real tip.
But inside, I'm broken. Inside, I deal with this pain on a daily basis.
For 10 long years, Tanya Mayo has pleaded for someone to come forward with information about her son's homicide.
And I have faith, and I have hope, and I believe, and I trust.
Police say 23-year-old Dion Anthony Matthews Jr. died from a gunshot wound in a parking lot near Dante's nightclub on Southwest 3rd and Burnside, October 18th, 2015. Dion's mom said he had just gotten out of a concert and the people he was with scattered and never even called paramedics when Dion was shot.
So no one know anything? No one seen anything? Come on now.
Mayo says the only person who has called in a tip is a man who was downtown at the time of the shooting and said he comforted Dion as he took his last breath.
But that was an ounce of hope, an ounce of faith that what I'm doing is the right thing and my voice is being heard.
Dion leaves behind 2 sons, now 12 and nearly 10. The youngest born just 2 months after his father's death.
And he always say, what would my dad been doing? What was my dad like? Or, I really wish I could have got a chance to meet my dad.
Mayo says with a Crime Stoppers reward of up to $2,500, she's hoping someone will provide a tip.
What if this was your child? What if this was your daughter or your son? Wouldn't you want answers? Wouldn't you want closure?
Libby Dowsett, KGW News.
Well, if you have information to share, you can email homicide-tips@police.portlandoregon.gov or submit a tip anonymously through Crime Stoppers of Oregon. You can find the link to the Crime Stoppers website under this article on our website, kgw.com, and on our KGW News app. Firefighters in Salem helped rescue a driver from a pickup truck after it was involved in a crash with a semi. Salem Fire Department says it happened at Kubler and Sunnyside Road Southeast sometime late last night. The driver was taken to a nearby hospital. Their condition is unknown.